Maria, you're muted. Sorry.
There we go. We'll give Jackie just a minute to jump on. So hopefully she's going to be able to make it. She hasn't told me that she can't, so. There we go. Hey, Jackie, it's Maria. It's a little after 1. I was just wondering if you're going to join us for the EAF meeting. It looks like you accepted it, so just jump on when you can. Thank you. All right, I just tried calling her cell phone, so she didn't pick up. So why don't we get started? And so I'll call this meeting of the Englewood Environmental Foundation to order. It is Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, and it is now 1:08 p.m. So we'll start with a roll call, please.
Director DeAndre.
Oops. Present.
Director Lowe. And Director Underhill.
Present.
Okay. All right, and then recognition of public comment. I don't believe I see anyone online, so we'll move on. Could scroll down a little bit, Michelle. Thank you. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. All right, so next up is approval of minutes from our October 10th, 2021 meeting. So our action there was primarily focused on the EAF, or excuse me, the guild, or no, we had 3 contracts, yeah, that we renewed. So for Armstrong Sweeping, and then I believe there were a couple others. Yep, so our Design Mechanical, which does our HVAC work on EAF property, and then the McBride Electrical contract was also renewed. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Director DeAndre,
Yes.
Director Lowe, and Director Underhill.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, and then our next item of business, our one item of business for the agenda is to talk about a contract with Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell for efforts related to the redevelopment agreement and redevelopment of the EAF site. So Dan, do you want to give us just a brief overview?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for scheduling this today. I know it was a bit of a challenge, so thank you very much. This is really an extension of 3 years of prior work, serving as special counsel for development related questions pertaining to the city center redevelopment program. And so it's consistent with the prior scope, although some new tasks have been added to the scope. There's really potentially a very large scope of services next year as we move forward with various aspects of redevelopment. And the suggestion was made, which was accommodated, to split the contract into 2 pieces, with this recommendation being specifically for the first 6 months of 2022, and then we'll reassess where we are at that point, and generally contemplate an additional PSA for the second half of next year, but that's subject to a separate recommendation and PSA extension. So we are recommending that the EAF board go ahead and approve by motion a recommendation to City Council to approve this PSA for the initial 6 months of 2022 at a max fee of $100,000.
One question, Dan. So I know we talked about whether or not to include those financial services. Is that a part of the scope? I believe the gentleman's name is Mark
Tompkins. It is currently, Maria, because that's the way we've done it and that's permitted under the contract. I know there are going to be some conversations later in the month about whether there are any alternatives to that approach, and obviously we remain open to that, but at least as the contract is structured right now, it's contemplated that he continue to be an approved consultant to Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell.
Okay, so I think the caveat that I would make then is that it has to be redevelopment related. So they can't work on DDA stuff. It can't morph those services to, the larger DDA area.
I understand
Tamara, you had a
that.
question or comment?
Yeah, I understand that concern. The only thing, go ahead, Tamara.
Okay, I just wanted to respond to that issue too. I know it's something I'm aware of because I think EAF needs to be careful to make sure that it only pays for what benefits EAF, given that it's public money, so we need to use it appropriately. To that end, I just sent an email to Dan and Maria both that I spoke with Kaplan Kirsch today, and they're going to CC us on emails. I think Mark's work can overlap. Some of it benefits EAF, potentially some possibly doesn't. So what I would propose is we look at those invoices, and if we see something that doesn't appear to be related to EAF, then we question it further.
Yeah, and I would just add to that where the bulk of Mark's work, that perhaps all of it that really pertains to the EDDA, has been specifically to create the public financing that would benefit specifically the redevelopment of city center. So even though it's somewhat EDDA related, it's very focused on creating a public finance mechanism specifically for city center.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with that somewhat. You know, again, I understand the larger picture, but then how are we using E funds instead of general city funds to do some of that? And I think that's the reason then for the 6-month window is to then evaluate, is EF the right funding mechanism for these costs, or is that a general city expense or a DDA expense?
Certainly a legitimate question.
Christina, do you have any comments? I know maybe this is relatively new, or some of this conversation. So there has been a lot of back and forth on this about the use of E funds for this purpose. And this has been the way that we've funded it in the past. I think the question is going forward, you know, there was no money put in the 2022 budget other than the assumption was that EF would continue to pay for this. And so now we're questioning that, does that continue to be an EF expense?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Maria, to make sure we stay on track and aren't spending EF funding if it's not directly related, but yeah. Yeah, not knowing the full past history of how this has all gone. I don't know if I have any additional questions. I think from the public standpoint, making sure we're in line, not kind of going sideways with the funds will be important.
Well, the other thing I was just thinking of is, you know, a critical strategy for the EDDA is to connect the 3 sub areas of downtown, including city center. And so even beyond the public finance aspects of city center redevelopment, there is this whole aspect of, you know, as we form the DDA and now got it operational, you know, just maintaining that focus on integrating city center into the overall EDDA strategy. So I just mentioned that.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously a goal, and we want to continue to integrate that. Again, it's just whether or not EF funding is the appropriate mechanism for that. So I'll ask, is there any other questions or comments? So Tamara, just one question. So that amendment on the email you just sent, that's or an agreement that's separate from this, what we're talking about today. So this would be an additional related just to environmental analysis.
Yes, I think we
Okay.
will bring a separate agreement regarding an environmental analysis of EVE property to allow EVE to evaluate the likelihood that it can and or should transfer ownership within the next 6 months or year.
Okay, yeah. They weren't rewriting this one in any way. Okay, yep, great. All right, with that, I would make a motion to approve the amendment, and subject to that, all invoices will be reviewed by the EF board, and that no expenses related to this amendment shall be for anything other than EF related expenses.
I will second that.
Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, please take the vote.
Director DeAndre,
Yes.
Director Lowe, and Director Underhill.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
All right. So we'll be chatting again, I'm sure, and continuing to discuss this topic as we move forward. And I believe that's the end of our agenda. Does anybody have anything to bring up? Any of the board members or other topics from the group?
One question on the elevator at the RTD platform. Is that going to be fixed or open soon?
Yes.
closed.
So it's taken a really long time, and part of the issue was that we had the fire marshal, since we're doing so much work to it, they're basically making us adhere to all current fire code requirements, which includes having a sprinkler system of some sort to suppress fires. So we did the change order maybe a couple of meetings ago. That went to council, and so they're going to get most of the work done probably within the next couple of weeks and have it operational. And then the fire suppression system can be installed after that, but we're getting close.
Okay,
in
perfect.
short.
That
And
works. We've got some questions.
RTD has been they're very anxious to get that back open again as
Sure.
well.
Okay,
'Cause
thank you.
they're the ones who usually take the first calls, so.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, let's see. If there's no other business, I'll adjourn the meeting at 1:19 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.